Digitalk Architects. We are here today with Vasanta from Lotuspring. Welcome to the show. Please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Ariel, thank you so much for having me. I am the CEO and founder of Lotuspring, which is a business advisory firm working in behavioral health and women's health. We work with companies and investors on their financial goals and growth strategies, basically reframing the financial structure and their marketing plan, growth plan, unlocking their energy to actually focus on growth and innovation so that we can focus on long-term sustainability. I'm a firm believer that companies in behavioral health and women's health really need to be focused on long-term sustainability so that we can build companies that are not right for us just for today or tomorrow, but ones that are going to be around in 5 and 10 plus years. And so that's what Lotuspring is focused on. I've been in the healthcare industry for 19 years, straight out of college. I was an anthropology major in college. Long time. It'll be 19 years on July 10th, which for some reason is a date that's stuck in my mind. After studying anthropology in college, I started off as a healthcare investment banker and I did that for 18 years before leaving about a year ago to start my own firm.
Wow. So let's start with this question because you just mentioned you started with anthropology and then you went into healthcare. So in your journey from anthropology to healthcare investment banking and now founding your own firm, what were the pivotal lessons from each stage from that journey that shape your approach to building sustainable businesses, especially in the women's health and behavioral health today?
It's really interesting. I used to give people this advice. Life is not a straight line. But meanwhile, I thought I was moving along a straight line in my life. But it's not, because life isn't a straight line. But there's usually something that connects everything together.
Right.
Exactly. Meandering path. Anthropology is the study of people, and study of cultures and humans, and literally the study of humans. And when you think about different cultures and different people, and it could be the culture of those of us who do podcasting, for example. It doesn't have to be any specific culture around the world.
Right.
And it helps you learn how to understand and think about people in a room, which I think has really helped shape how I think about how to get parties together. When there's people that are disagreeing on what to do, how to bring them together and take them in a single direction. I started off in banking in 2006 in healthcare because I was really interested in healthcare. My mother always wanted me to be a physician.
Interesting.
And it goes with the cultural territory. But her grandfather was a really well-known physician, and so she had wanted me to be a physician as well. And I really liked the idea of being in healthcare, but I'm a little squeamish around blood, so being a physician was not going to be something that was in the cards for me. And I thought I was going to go into banking for a couple of years, Carolina, and somehow now it's 19 years later that I'm still in healthcare. And I think it's going to be, for the long haul. When I first started off in banking, I was working with large hospitals and healthcare systems. So I really learned how things work across a system. And ultimately in the United States in healthcare, the health system the hospital actually ends up being part of your healthcare journey at some point or the other. So understanding how everything connects with that was really helpful. Over time, I got into a lot of different sectors within healthcare. And then I started learning how smaller businesses interact with larger businesses and how to position smaller businesses to be able to interact with larger businesses. And then that took me into behavioral health. And what I learned in behavioral health was that something that is really simple, something that seems really simple, might actually be really, really complicated. So in behavioral health, for example, the number of medical codes, across different diagnoses in behavioral health, there's a far fewer number of those medical codes. But that is actually, in fact, so it seems simpler on the surface, but that is, in fact, what makes it a lot more complicated. And so I think that spending a lot of time in behavioral health has really taught me that. And then over time, that took me into women's health. And in women's health, I learned that just because a gap hasn't been recognized doesn't mean that gap doesn't exist. I originally went from behavioral health and broadened my focus into women's health because I saw people building brand new businesses in behavioral health that they weren't building for women. The logistics and physical clinical reactions that we have as women versus men are very different. And I saw people building these brand new businesses without taking that into consideration. And that's what took me down that path into women's health, which I had previously thought of as more of OBGYN care. Now, for the last few years, I have been learning something new every single week. And when we think about, the gaps that have not been recognized, doesn't mean that they don't exist. That's what I was saying a couple minutes ago. 80% of Americans with autoimmune disease are women. So, someone wouldn't think of autoimmune disease as a women's health issue intrinsically, but it is, because 80% of Americans who have the autoimmune diseases are women. Non-smoking women are 2 times more likely to get lung cancer than non-smoking men. And then 2/3 of all Alzheimer's patients are women, which is also, a fascinating statistic. And the number one killer of women is actually heart disease. And women are 2 times more likely to die in the month after a heart attack than men. And one of the things that I really didn't know is that as women, we don't typically feel left arm pain when we're having a heart attack. We often have jaw pain and nausea and all these other things. But on TV, you always see someone getting a heart attack and clutching their left arm. And so I didn't know that. There are just so many facts like that I've now learned. So I think, over time, it's not just, how did you go from one to the next, and you learn different lessons along the way, but you also pick up how to think about different things. And that has just been really, really interesting to me.
Very cool. So you've worked closely in your, like what you were describing earlier, right? Like you were in the healthcare system, right? And in that system, you work closely with founders-led and provider-owner healthcare companies, right? And in that journey, what are some of the common challenges that these businesses face when trying to scale? And how does your advisory approach help them overcome some of those issues?
Yeah, so when I was a banker, I was working on a number of different financial advisory transactions, whether that was advising large health systems on issuing debt, or advising these founder-owned and provider-owned companies that you're talking about, advising them on how to sell their businesses. And when, a lot of that work that I did over the course of the 18 years prior to founding Lotuspring really informed how I think about things for Lotuspring. Right. Because I work with early stage companies, startups that are, still trying to figure out what direction they're going to go in, mid-sized companies that have become stuck in some form or fashion, and need help mobilizing and getting unstuck. And then investors that are invested in healthcare or want to invest in healthcare and want to understand more about the market landscape, how to grow. And one of the things, that I see as a real issue is, should they focus on marketing or operations? And, a lot of time people want to get more patients in the door.
What's the right answer?
Well,
marketing or operations?
Marketing or operations.
It's a good balance.
You have to have a good balance. That is the right answer, right? Because if you spend too much time and money on marketing and you don't focus on your operations, you've now brought in a lot of patients, but what is the product that you're actually selling? In healthcare services, your actual product is the actual healthcare that you're providing, and that's your operations. That's what you're actually providing.
100%.
And so if you don't build that up, then you can market all you want and bring in all these patients, but then you don't have the product anymore that you were originally marketing, right? And so I've seen a lot of companies that were doing really well when they were at a smaller scale, and then suddenly grew to add so many different patients and really focus on that marketing engine, but then didn't bring the operations along with it. And that, I think, when you said balance, that's the key, right? Should you focus on one or the other? If you have these great operations, but you don't focus on marketing, you never get any patients that actually experience the great operations that you have. So you can't focus only on that either. So you do need to have that balance. I think a lot of times people get stuck in this question of how do you fund your growth? And when you are in a position where you need dollars to come in the door to continue to grow, makes it feel like you need to go market to get more patients in the door. But you do need to bring your operations along with it. And, some people think to fund the growth, I need to bring in people who have expertise in marketing. I need to bring in, venture capital or what other types of capital that they're looking at that has that marketing expertise. But coupling that with the operations to make sure that there is that balance is just so key.
Okay. So you mentioned the importance of, in a conversation you and I had initially, you mentioned the importance of building businesses that are not just solving a problem, but are also sellable and sustainable. and it kind of ties up to this conversation because, you're building, but it all kind of has to be sustainable, operational, and marketing wise, right? What are some of the key characteristics that make a business both attractive to buyers and resilient for the long term?
Yeah, and I think, I think in the context of when I said that, I think I was trying to say that, it's not that different. What makes a company really, exciting and sellable is not that different from what makes a company sustainable in the long term. Because ultimately, buyers are looking at those characteristics to see if I buy this, then will it be sustainable in the long term? And can I continue to grow it, right? The reason, and let me go back to the sustainability for a second. The reason why I am so focused on that is because I have seen a lot of businesses in behavioral health and in women's health that have really been really exciting. There's a lot of hype around it. They really seem like they're going to succeed, and then they have faltered. And some of those businesses have also closed. And so if that happens, the patients are the ones that suffer. And especially in behavioral health, if you go through the trouble of marketing to a patient, getting that patient to get into care. If you think about the profile of a behavioral health patient, you get them into care, and then your company shuts down, and they don't have any care anymore. Now someone else has to do that whole work. Exactly, someone else has to do all that work to start all over again. So I do think it's better, not just from a business perspective, but actually very importantly for patients, for us to build these long-term sustainable businesses that are going to be around, 5, 10, 20 years from now. What are those statistics? To go back to your question, I think there needs to be something different about the company. What is the gap that you're trying to solve? What is the challenge that you're trying to solve? And what makes your company different from someone else's company? Are you more niche, and are you more special in a way that someone could really understand exactly what type of care you're providing, how you're providing it, and why they should come to you for the care that you're providing? Are you solving a problem that people actually have? I think that is also really important, because a lot of times I see people filling in a gap that people don't actually have, and then you only have a certain amount of space to grow, because there's not a lot of people that have the problem that you're trying to solve. There's a smaller set of people that have the problem you're trying to solve. The other thing is, if you need to have a diversified revenue base, different sources of revenue as well as different referral sources, and if your business is coming in from a lot of different places, both the revenue side and the referral side, that's really important. And then a clear plan to continue to grow.
So it's kind of like your marketing side, right?
Yeah. The marketing side needs to work, the operation. So I think the first thing I was talking about was really the operations side, right? Is there something different about your company? Is there something specific? Are you solving a real problem that real people actually have? And on the other side, do you have that diversified revenue? Do you have the diversified referral sources? And is there a clear plan to continue to grow?
Great. Okay. All right. Now, I want to switch it up a little bit and talk a little bit about you as a solopreneur, right? Because ultimately, this whole journey took you from, the healthcare and the investments and banking, and now you've jumped into,
starting my own business.
Basically, starting your own business. And that comes with a whole set of new challenges and things that you have to think about that you don't necessarily think about when you're working for somebody else, right?
Right.
And so the first thing, and you and I, when we first met, we were talking about tools and, all the things all the hats we have to wear as business owners, right? Because you're a business owner, I'm a business owner. So now as a solo business owner, we are going to speak about leveraging digital tools. And you and I were talking about CRMs and reminders, and you're using tools, AI tools, some of them, to manage tasks and stay productive. So as a business owner now, how are you evaluating and choosing the right AI tools or automation tools to integrate into your workflows? And what advice do you have for other founders who feel overwhelmed by all of these options? And honestly, also, in your position, because at the end of the day, your business is about advising other businesses, right?
Right.
So you have to educate yourself to then pass on that knowledge to other people that you're helping, right? So you're evaluating for yourself, but ultimately that's also also knowledge you're passing on to other people. So how are you managing all of that?
I think I mean, it's a lot. I'll just start with that. I think
It is a lot.
we only have so much time, right? We have to make ourselves more efficient. And what you and
Mm-hmm.
I were talking about with the CRM is the secret hidden tools that you find by accident when you're playing around with the tool that you have.
Yeah.
So my CRM software, this was not marketed to me like this at all. I chose the CRM for a completely different reason, but it checks through my email, and if I haven't responded to someone within a couple of days of them emailing me, it'll send me an email saying you need to respond to this person. And if I've sent an email and someone else hasn't responded back to me, it'll send me an email saying you need to follow up with this person. And I just love that because it's not in the software. I don't have to go into the software to find out that it's nudging me. It's nudging me in my own email, like sending me another email to say, do this. And
So let's do a disclaimer.
yeah.
We're not getting any funding from these tools, but
No, that's why I haven't
we
even said the
want
name
to
of it.
but we want to help people. So hey, like you said, it's not even advertised for this particular functionality, but let's tell people what that tool is so that people then can go and explore and know that it has it, right? Like that this tool that is
Yeah.
not advertised as a reminder actually has that built into it.
It's
Feel
called
free to mention
Affinity.
it.
It's called Affinity CRM. I think
Mm-hmm.
affinity.co is the website. And that wasn't what they advertised to me, but that is the reason why I love it.
So it's a
So
pretty
I'm
cool
probably,
tool.
and I think that, one of the things I would say is all the AI tools are really overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to use all of the tools that people give you, right? You don't have to use
No.
all of the tools. And also, you don't need to use all of the parts of every tool. Like, I'm probably not using so much of what is in this CRM system. But the thing that's really valuable to me is the part that tells me that I haven't responded to an email.
And you know what? That's
Um,
fair. And
yeah,
AI and these type of tools are evolving so quickly,
so
right?
fast. Yeah.
That what what was really good a month ago might be replaced by something else that's even better now, and that competes directly with what you were using before. And I have been in that situation numerous times now, right? Where we start using one tool, and for me, it's like I'll go back and I'll tell the story to to as many people as like before. I've been using AI tools way before ChatGPT,
Hmm.
right? When that wasn't even in the vocabulary, right? And they were expensive. So let's start there, right? So I started using them probably a couple of years before ChatGPT came out, right? Back then, those tools were amazing, but
Hmm.
to use one of those tools, you were spending about $150 a month in some sort of subscription,
Yeah.
right? And it had limitations. It wasn't perfect. Not that they are perfect, but just go back and think 2 years before ChatGPT, right? And then ChatGPT is not perfect today, so you now you kind of get the point, right? And those tools had been replaced by something else, right? And
Hmm.
when ChatGPT came out, that kind of replaced some of those tools. But here's the kicker: some tools that came out right around the same time as ChatGPT are now also obsolete, or we are replacing them because a new tool came out that does something better than that tool was
Hmm.
doing, right? So it's a constant improvement of the
Yes.
tools, which keeps you just kind of moving and cycling through them.
Yeah. It's getting updated so quickly and it's changing so fast that I think that's part of what makes so many people overwhelmed and resistant to it. We've been using AI for a long time without realizing we were using AI because
Agree.
we,
Yeah.
the general people that weren't in the tech industry, didn't know that we were using AI. But just even before all the subscription tools that you're talking about.
Yeah, and I think it's just less more
Yeah.
AI from
Yeah.
before, right? Which was
Yeah.
mostly data driven AI. Now it's like you have the generative aspect of it that can kind of not think on its own yet, but do all that processing on its own, right? Before it was like more of like large data models that were feeding information to make something smart, right? Now it's a little bit different.
Yeah, and I think, a few years ago we were having a lot of conversations about AI in healthcare. And, if AI has all this information, historical information, is AI now going to look at all that information and expect something to go along a certain path when we needed to learn and use this new information that we just got. And even though it only has a couple of data points, the new information, and many data points, the old information, use the new data point and tell us something new, so that we can get away from some of the inherent biases that are in healthcare from before. But I think things like that and how quickly it's changing, those are all the things that are making people so overwhelmed, because like the pace of new technology coming out is so much faster now than it feels like it used to be.
100%.
Yeah, I mean, during our lifetimes, we've gone from cassette tapes and floppy disks to DVDs and CDs. We're aging
VHS.
ourselves here, yeah. Yeah.
I know, right? Like,
Yeah. Oh yeah, VHS, cassette tapes, VHS, floppy disks,
VHS, and
CDs, yeah.
the dial phones.
Yeah.
Technology.
I mean, I remember the first CD I ever got, which was the Beauty and the Beast soundtrack. So
that's amazing.
I do not remember the first
really
cassette.
Dating it.
Yes.
No, I do not. I don't remember that either.
No, I don't remember the first cassette. I don't remember the first VHS. They probably they probably existed before.
But I do remember recording on cassettes.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So,
and I used to record songs from the radio onto cassettes and then play them on my Walkman. Yeah.
Yeah, we all did that.
When you.
But that's just the evolution, right?
It really does show the evolution. Right? Yeah. And I think that's why it feels so fast. Like we started from that, and then suddenly we had phones, flip phones, and then went to regular phones, then flip phones, then suddenly we had these smartphones, and then the evolution of those have gone so fast.
The mini computer in our pockets, right?
In a pocket, yeah.
Was unthinkable, and then it was there. And now look at all the things they can do, right?
You can do everything from your watch, so.
That too, yeah. We're carrying it, right?
So when I hear people being resistant to AI, to me it's more, it's similar to where you're resistant to getting a cell phone, where you're resistant from moving from a typewriter to a computer, where you're resistant to the little light that turns on in your car when someone's in your blind spot, because these are all tools that are helping make us more efficient, safer, faster. And so I think it is really important to, figure out what the gaps are, like what are the things that are slowing you down in your daily processes as a founder, and whatever those things are that are slowing you down, are there ways that you can outsource that, and are there AI tools that can help you outsource that? So the reason why I'm so excited, for example, just to go back to what we were talking about before, so excited about something sending me an email saying you did not respond to this person, or this person has not responded to you, is because I naturally, once I've sent an email, like I've done it, it's over. Sometimes you do need to prompt somebody because they may have received it at a moment that they were busy and they forgot to respond to you.
That happens
happens all the time.
I think that happens to all of us.
Yeah, so you send them a quick nudge.
A lot of the times it's like you see the notification, it's there, but then you're so distracted into. For me, it's a lot of. I see the notification, but I'm in the middle of meetings or work stuff. And then even though I've seen the notification, the day went by, I completely forgot about it, and now it's under a pile of other emails that came through. Now I don't remember, right? And then and then the next day comes and you already have 100 emails to go through, and if that one is not right at the top, you could get lost in the mess, right? That is sometimes our email inboxes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the reason why I think it's important to look at the different AI tools is because there might be 3 different tools that do the same thing that'll help solve your problem, but one of them might have an interface that's easier for your brain to register.
To process,
to process and register. And so it is important to look at different tools to figure out what the right tools are for you. And, because I know some people that love Google Calendar, and other people that love Outlook Calendar, and other people that love all of these new AI calendars that are out there that put different calendars together. So there's different options. Different people have thought of the design in different ways. And you have to have multiple different solutions to all these issues. So,
Yeah, because
figure
people
out which
process
one's right
things
for you.
differently, right?
Absolutely. And that's what I was talking about before when I was talking about the characteristics of an attractive company, one that is sellable and sustainable in the long term. Like, are you solving a problem for people that they actually have? Sometimes people don't know that they have the problem. And I feel like that's what a lot of these AI tools are. They're solving problems that I don't necessarily realize that I have. And so that makes it even more interesting because you have to tell me that I have the problem and then I can recognize it and then say, oh yeah,
Act
that
on
actually
it.
be really helpful. I would like that.
So on that note,
Mm-hmm.
still here talking about AI.
Yeah.
In the healthcare business, now, they're expected to be AI enabled by
Mm-hmm.
default,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that means, right? In your view, what does it really mean for a healthcare business to be AI enabled? And how
Mm-hmm.
do you see this shaping the future of patient care and the business operation?
Yeah.
It's a loaded question.
Loaded question. I think 5 or 6 years ago, when people were looking at healthcare services businesses, they were looking at things that they wanted to be what they used to say tech enabled.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like there's been a real shift from calling something tech enabled to calling something AI enabled. It's still tech enabled, but right now it's AI enabled. And there's two sides to it on the AI enabled graph, I'd say. One side is, are you using AI for everything we were just talking about, right? Are you improving all of your back office functions? Are you making your company more efficient? Is your workflow easier? Does everyone in your company have access to various different tools that are reducing costs in your business so that people are really focused on the healthcare side of actually providing the healthcare? But on the other side, there's so much, to answer your question of how do you see this shaping the future of patient care. So that's the business side, right? Making the business more efficient, because healthcare businesses are also businesses. And so, everything we've been talking about with founders, how do you make your business and everything more efficient, making your workflows more efficient. But on the other side, we have a really big provider shortage in the United States. The 2024 AAMC report, AAMC is the Association of American Medical Colleges. So it was a report that came out last year. They said by 2036, which is 11 years away, at the time it was 12 years away, we're going to have an 80,000 physician shortage. So that's a big number. It's a shocking number. It's a scary number, but
Yeah,
there's a
it's
lot
a
of
shocking
different
number.
factors. Yeah, a lot of different factors feeding into
It's a
that
big
number.
number.
Big number, yeah. And it's an overall number, right? By specialty,
Right.
it's going to be different, but it's an overall
Mm-hmm.
number. But that's it kind of feels like a really big problem. And how do you solve that problem without attacking it from a number of different angles? And one of the
Mm-hmm.
angles is AI tools, these AI tech enabled tools to make to allow these healthcare services businesses to leverage their physicians, because they're not going to have as many physicians as they used to have, because we're about to have this provider shortage that is, well, we already have a provider shortage, let me put it that way, but is continuing
It's just
to
going to
grow.
get worse.
Yeah, it's going to get worse and worse.
And so now you need lots of tools
Lots of
to
tools,
kind of
and not
to
just
help with that.
to help with that,
God.
and not just on the business side, making the business operations stronger and better and more efficient, but also on the patient engagement side, on the marketing side, and also on the patient interaction side. So direct client facing AI as well. And I've heard
Yeah. So
a number of different companies that have been talking about that lately, and they're all building and developing different client facing, patient facing AI tools. And I think that those are going to be really key. And that's really exciting
yeah.
as well, because that to me is really fun and exciting. And I think back to what we were talking about earlier, where I was sitting, 6 or 7 years ago, worried about how AI was going to reinforce some of the historical stereotypes and knowledge gaps that we have in healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
And if we keep doubling down on the old data that we have, are we going to continue to make those problems bigger? This is using AI in a completely different way that's really exciting.
Yeah. So I can tell you from our point of view,
Mm-hmm.
here at the agency, we have a few clients of ours are in the healthcare industry, and we are helping them now set up all those so not all of them, but a few of those AI automation tools to help with those gaps, right? So helping them balance that, like for instance, with one of them, it's about helping them with their staffing situation. So instead of like them having to hire extra people to do bookings, now we're setting up booking systems that are powered by AI that are pretty smart at trying to figure this out with patients online. So you put that, it doesn't mean that it's eliminating a job, because I think that's what most people think about when you talk about it. It's going to take my job. I don't think it's going to take jobs. It's just going to reshape the jobs, the job market, because it's not going to be about doing the job, but more about managing the tools that are helping you do that
Right.
job, right? So it's going to make you more efficient. So it's going to help people, maybe the business owners won't need as many people, but the people they have will be more efficient,
Right.
right? And if there is a shortage, then, is it really taking jobs away or just helping fill that gap in many of those cases, right?
I think it's helping reposition, what we were looking over here for certain things, and now it's helping reposition those people into different things. And I think any new technology forces people to think about their jobs differently.
Of
When the
course.
Industrial Revolution happened and we got steam engines, we needed less carriage drivers. So when you go
Like you
back,
said earlier, right?
yeah,
Like the people doing the typewriter when computers were introduced, like, oh my God, what's going to happen now, right? It's just
right,
evolving, right? Like now you're not writing with typewriter. Now you're learning to use the computer, and look where we are now, right?
right.
So
I think what's
and I think it's the same transition, right?
right, right,
We went from the industrial revolution to the technology revolution, and now we're going from the technology revolution to the AI revolution in a
right,
sense, right? Which
right,
is a transition, but it just changes how people are doing things. And it doesn't mean that you're not going to find a job. It just means that you need to go and train yourself to find new kind of jobs, maybe.
right. And I'm hopeful that I think when some of these tools first get introduced, it takes us
Mm-hmm.
in one direction and then eventually we come back into a good direction. For example, just I think about all of the technology that's in our cars now, right? When they first
Oh,
put all the
yeah.
technology in our cars, it felt distracting, and it felt like it made the car a little bit less safe. But now all of those tools have made the car so much safer, and especially the blind spotlights. I love
Oh,
that.
so many of them, right?
So
Like, I
many
don't know,
other
my
things.
car, my car automatically
Stops, yeah,
stops and
keeps me in the
kind of
lane.
keeps in the lane, and if
Yeah.
it senses a car beside you, it won't let you crash into it. So
I
there's a
needed
lot
to
of
go
good things, right?
I needed to go
um
around something that was in the road, and it was really hard to make my car go around because I wanted to stay in the lane. Like,
Stay
no,
in the
there's something
lane.
in the
Yep.
road. I can see it. But that's where
Yeah.
that's where you still, one of the things I do worry about is, are we too reliant on technology sometimes? And we need to make sure that we're always still thinking. Like, I did need to go around this tree trunk that was sitting in the middle of the road. Like, I needed to
Agree.
override the technology to go around it. I can
Yeah.
see the highway from my apartment window, and so sometimes, like, I will look up on my map on my phone how long it's going to take to get somewhere. But if I can see there's traffic, I don't go on that highway. I'll go through other streets before I
Yes.
eventually go over to that highway. And so sometimes you do have to think for yourself before you use the technology. So
a
I
hundred
think the
percent
key word is tool. It is not something that is doing the thinking for you. It is a tool that you have at your disposal.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
100%. All right. So finally,
Yes.
the last one for today, I think, is based on your experience. How can digital marketing and AI automation tools play a
Mhm.
role in closing these gaps in terms of patient engagement and business growth, right? And that it goes back to that, personal adoption. It's about the person still, right? The patient.
Yeah, ultimately, exactly. I mean, ultimately, in any healthcare services business, your customer, your client, whatever word you want to use, is the actual patient. And what does the patient actually need, and what tools does the patient have? And I think when you're trying to solve a healthcare problem, a lot of times people start trying to solve that problem with a certain part of the population. Over time, want to grow, and build out those tools for a larger part of the population. And that's where using these AI tools for patient engagement becomes really important. I think there are lots of parts of the population that don't have access to as many of these tools. So having a lot of those tools on the company side is really important, so that they don't need to have it on their side. I think making it easier for patients to engage, making it easier for patients to feel like you are taking care of their particular problem, all of that is just going to become really key as we go down this road. And I have listened to some companies say that when they had, a provider person using prompts talking to a patient, the feedback they got from those patients was, this doesn't feel like a real person's talking to me. They don't really care about my problems. But when the AI was talking to the person, the AI had all the information that was there before. And so it was using that in responding to the person. And so then the feedback was, it really feels like whoever's talking to me really understands what I'm trying to tell them.
Isn't that crazy?
So it's so crazy to me, and I've just been finding it fascinating. But I think that's so important, because we do need to keep patients engaged. We do need to make sure that patients really continue to use the healthcare services that we're all providing. And as we continue to grow our businesses using all our back office tools, I think the real focus is going to be on spending more time and energy on how can we make those patient-facing tools better.
I agree. All right. Well, it was super nice having you in our show today. Thank you. Thank you for coming out and spending this last hour with us. We hope to maybe have you back sometime in the future.
That'd be great. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed the conversation, and looking forward to talking about this again. If we talk about this again a year from now, it's going to be completely different. We're going to be talking about completely different AI tools.
We'll probably be sitting here talking, say, hey, did you hear about this tool that's now doing all of these things for like healthcare? And it's super smart and can do this, and that. And I mean, the way it's developing, I'm sure that would be the case.
Absolutely. I feel like every week I do learn about a new AI tool that I need to adopt. And so I do understand why founders are feeling overwhelmed by it, but I think keep looking for the tools that work best for you, and figure out what stops your workflow and find the solution for that. Thank you so much, Carolina.
All right. Thank you, Vasanta. We'll talk soon. Take care.